Avengers, assemble. Welcome back to Standards Presents. I'm Greg, and if you're enjoying the content we're producing, please consider following that link in the description below to assemble with us on Patreon by becoming an Avenger today. We have two tiers available, a $3 tier and a $5 tier. At that $5 tier, you become an Avenger Premium member, and your name is added to our Avenger Memorial Hall of Fame. I want to thank all of my Avenger Premium members for their support, and all of my Avengers, thank you so much for supporting our channel and sponsoring us. Legitimately, thank you so much. So let's get into the topic at hand. Marvel's Avengers free-to-play. It's a question that comes up often. It's a question we see very often in the comments, in the DMs, and even in the Discord. It's a little topic that kind of pops up. People talk about, hey, what would happen if it did go free-to-play? Could it go free-to-play? And it's an interesting question. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. Now we're going to drive this conversation forward. We're going to see what happens with it. Avengers going free-to-play. What does that mean for the content? What does that mean for the arrival of new content, for the rollout of new content? How could it be approached? How could it be handled? And this is interesting. It could go numerous ways, but I wanted to list a few things before you answer. Before you answer and leave your thoughts in the comments. The biggest one is heroes and villains. Playable heroes might not be free anymore. Villain sectors, Omega level threats, raids, they might not be free anymore. It's very likely that they would charge for them. It's very likely you would have to spend a premium currency, or if there was a chance to get them for free, it would be a slow premium currency rollout. Where you would complete so many tasks and earn it. In terms of, because the goal is you want to play as the heroes and you want the variety, right? And the thing is that Marvel has enough characters that you could have hundreds of playable characters like League of Legends, right? But they all need really unique playstyles. Marvel's Avengers, it needs to have a lot more depth to it in terms of skill trees, in terms of trying to have every character match, unless there was a complete overhaul when it went free to play, which is, again, also a point of contention. Would you want a massive overhaul that would simplify the heroes, but that would allow more heroes to get out? Because look at any kind of other hero-based looter or any other kind of hero-based gameplay, if you will. You have Overwatch, you have League of Legends, you have pretty much any arena game that's driven by, you play as this champion, plays this character, you have your cooldowns, you have a few abilities, but it's simple, it's straightforward in terms of the character, in terms of a skill tree, in terms of the abilities and leveling up. Avengers has the scope of the Marvel Universe to pull characters from, but it also has a different development time in terms of graphics, motion capture, voice acting, cinematics, all these things that go into it. What is the sacrifice when Avengers, if in your mind, the only way that Avengers is successful, it has to go free to play. What is the sacrifice? What is the trade-off? Because something has to be sacrificed and traded off. If the idea is to continue to add new heroes, well, if the game's free to play, obviously they're charging for cosmetics. Is cosmetics enough? Is there enough from cosmetics to offset the balance of, okay, well, new people, there aren't new people to purchase the game because the game is free to play. Is the balance there? Can heroes continue to be free? Can expansions continue to be free? New biomes, new locations, patrol modes, all these things. What's free? What's cost? What are you as a consumer willing to pay for? What are you willing to say, okay, if it's free to play, I'm willing to spend money on this. Is cosmetics enough? And that's a question that we can't overtly directly answer. We can speculate endlessly. We really can. We can speculate wildly. It's the internet. Everybody loves to speculate wildly. But if we're going to seriously talk about, as a fan base, free to play, then who do we compare it to in terms of free to play? Do we compare it to Destiny, right? There's tons of free to play games out there. There's, again, Fortnite, massive. League of Legends, massive, right? Apex Legends, massive. The Halo Infinite multiplayer, massive. Again and again and again. How does Avengers separate itself, though, in terms of its hero structure, in terms of its roster, in terms of expanding its roster, the balance of cost versus the revenue that needs to be generated, the balance of the arrival of heroes, the balance of villain sectors and villains? Because the one thing about Avengers is it's not competitive. It doesn't have a competitive multiplayer component. It is purely cooperatively driven. It's not like any of the other games. They all have competitive components. And that's a risk because you're losing something. You don't have that fan base of people fighting each other to fall back on. You don't have that competitive nature of the next match, of winning that next match, so to speak. It is purely cooperatively driven looter shooter, if you will. And there's no guarantee or promise that there's a massive audience who just wants to log in for a co-op experience with 3 other people. You know, Destiny has a huge competitive multiplayer component. Again, it's from the people, it's from Bungie. Bungie created Halo, for God's sake. I mean, you can't ignore the pedigree there. The same goes for Apex Legends, the pedigree behind it. League of Legends, all of these thriving competitive scenes. The key word is, look at all these free-to-play games. They're all competitive in nature. How does Avengers survive in that if it realistically goes free to play? What sets it apart? How often does it need new heroes? Do you charge for new heroes? Do you charge for the villain sectors? Do you charge for the raids? Do you only charge for the cosmetics and the challenge cards? And is that enough? These are all questions that we have to answer. Because if we're going to cover this topic, if we're going to look at this topic as we've been asked to, well, then we need more input from the community. There's not enough information on this topic from the community in terms of focus testing, in terms of casting a net and getting feedback. So that's where you come in. That's where you seriously look at the cost and value of Marvel's Avengers, the price and barrier to entry, the free-to-play, a solely cooperatively game type. Again, there is no competitive game type in Avengers. How do you balance that? What makes it valuable? What do you charge for? So let's get these questions out there and let's get them answered. And then, of course, we'll follow up on it. We'll take your feedback. We'll look at it, and we'll see what the consensus is. We'll see if there's an overriding consensus, or at least a majority. So thank you so much to my Avengers for supporting our content. If you are able, please consider assembling with us on our Patreon. We do appreciate it. And thank you for being a part of this conversation. Please consider liking this video if you haven't, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and share our content on social media. It helps immensely with YouTube's analytics and algorithms. Above all else, and most importantly, stay safe, take care of others, and have a marvelous day. Bye, everyone.